Welcome, everyone. For you of those that don't know me, my name's Jeff, aka Mad Hatter Organics, and this is the Growers Exchange podcast. I wanted to start this podcast to get more information out there about different growers, breeders, and industry companies. So stick with us as we exchange all types of grower knowledge. First off, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Autopot USA, for the best plant-driven automated watering system out there. Use discount code MADHATTER10 on autopot-usa.com for 10% off your entire order. And Intralite, for the last stop shop for IPM. Want the easiest way to get rid of those bugs and pathogens? Just plug in a single Intra ring light into your tent and set it on a timer. These lights will take care of business. Use discount code MADHATTER5 for 5% off your entire order over at intralight.co. Now, let's get started with the conversation. Welcome, everybody, to the 6th episode of the Growers Exchange podcast. Today, I have an awesome guest, another podcaster, the Reverend Pirate Frog. Welcome, my friend.
Thanks for having me, man. It's terrible that you've had to resort so low to guest this early, but I appreciate the ask anyway.
You're a good guy. Had to bring you
Yeah,
on.
well, I appreciate it. We've already been in talks to have you on ours, so it's good to get the crossovers out. I consider you a close personal friend, so I'm
Nice.
excited to talk.
Yeah, awesome. Uh, you know, I'm not really scripted. I don't really have any talking points again today, so it's just kind of go with the flow.
If it was scripted, I wouldn't have shown up, man.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I try not to go with that whole scripted thing either. I have a little talking points every once in a while just because I have to do my research on people and find out what they're like, and if I can figure out if what your strong suits are, then that's kind of the talking point I'll go towards. But with
It's a good plan. Unfortunately, I have no strong suits, so let's play it by ear.
yeah, I was just gonna say with you, it's just kind of a broad range of everything. So we'll
Exactly.
ramble on.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's get started with where in the world are you and why did you start growing this amazing medical plant?
So, that's a good question. I live in Southern California, Orange County specifically. Uh, I I was born in the city of Orange in Orange County, so I think the naming fits. I guess
Yeah.
I got a red beard in the sun. It's a curse. No, I'm in Orange County, Southern California, man. I've lived all over California. Time in Santa Cruz, time in Roynert Park. I went to school up there. I just really need to be next to the Pacific Ocean.
Hmm.
So that's kind of why I'm stuck here, paying a fortune for a very small place.
Yeah.
But what got me into growing is I started with the as a child just being around it. Both of my parents used. I've just constantly been around the natural medicine, and it's it's just something I've kind of my whole life's about. So it's not as big of a deal to me as some people because it's just always been there.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
it's just another thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like myself as well. I've kind of been around it ever since I was a young teenager. So I grew with my
Yeah.
dad. I grew with the friends, and yeah, I've always been around it. So
I got very lucky at where lived, especially because it's been, I think, medically legal since 1996. So I mean, I was I was just coming into my teenage, or not teenage, but I was coming up into that time of early teens to where it was already medically legal. So
hmm
it worked out nicely. So
yeah.
I mean, we still had our issues growing up, but nothing as bad as it's been in the past
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
or in other states.
Yeah. So I'm gonna Johnny a couple questions here at you.
Oh,
Um,
good.
why Reverend and why a pirate frog?
Oh no. There is actually a story. So, the Reverend part, a long time ago in my state, you can become a minister and do weddings and stuff like that. So a long time ago, I always thought it'd be funny to just call myself the Reverend, and I'm not a very religious person. In fact, I've been disciplined by a church for using the natural medicine, but that's a story for another time. But so I always thought that was funny that I am a reverend legally. So it, the absurdity of that, and I have a rad little nephew, and for Christmas I got him like a pirate play set. And I always dig pirates. You know, I'm super into sailing, and my dream as a young, dumb teenager was to just disappear on a sailboat and
Yeah.
resort to piracy, but that's not how life works. Um, but anyway, I got it. So now I live vicariously through toys for my nephew. It's, that's so cool. But he was playing with it, and I had a little frog that I had also gotten him, and I put it on there, and he goes, "Oh, Pirate Frog." And so it kind of stuck there, the Reverend Pirate Frog. And selfishly, I wanted stickers and a T-shirt if I ever get them to be frog related. So frog and pirate, let's knock it out, man.
Yeah. Something you're passionate about, something you love, some memories that you've had in the past.
Yeah, I've always kept frogs. I don't now, so that always is a lie right off the bat. But I did when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of love for them. I grew up with a very like hippie mother, so she taught me how to catch tadpoles, turn them into frogs in a big terrarium in my room and stuff. So got
Nice.
got a got a
Nice.
got a strange love for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a couple fire belly toads back in the day.
Righteous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, all toads are frogs, but not all frogs are toads.
True. True. Yeah.
Pointless information. If you take one thing from me this entire interview, it'll probably be that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll probably have that stuck in my head for the rest of my life now. Thanks.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I guess you kind of got into the medical growing side of things through your parents, and now you grow yourself, obviously.
Yeah.
What do you got for situation
So
there?
so I started getting into it because it was just always nice to grow. And in high school, you asked me a question, I didn't answer it, so I'll answer it for you with
Yeah.
but in high school, I started with a buddy of mine. It was the early days of forums, right? So we were looking up on forums all these cool pictures of people doing all these great hydroponic grows, and it was always just the coolest scientific looking shit, and
Yeah.
that blew my mind, right? We never had an issue getting anything around where I lived, so
No, yeah.
we never wanted, right? So that was never an issue. It was this pure Star Trek looking thing, and the strain names would come out with stuff like oh, this tastes like, fruit by the foot would become a different one eventually, and stuff about all these like strawberry tastes like, and stuff that the stuff we were getting wasn't tasting like. So it was this fantasy land. But so we were really into all the online forums and all these great sounding strain names and all these things that we just weren't getting or tasting, and all these amazing scientific experiments that we thought looked like experiments that were deep water culture and all these cool hydroponics that we wanted to try, and we knew we couldn't. So I believe we just stuffed it in a closet, tried to let it go as long as we could. That we didn't feed it properly. We probably didn't even have the right lights, right? We probably just all the information we were getting was secondhand from people who were probably egging us in the wrong direction just because it was hilarious. But it ultimately got we got busted. I had no skin in the game. It was my buddy's house, so you know, when you're gonna commit crimes as a teenager, make sure it's at somebody else's place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just kidding. But yeah, so that we failed that multiple times. But I always really like gardening. My mother's a really good gardener. And so my entire life I've seen, like, my grandmother always loved gardening too. So from a very young age, I've always loved gardening. But for the longest time, I never associated gardening and cannabis because I always wanted to do hydroponic, really cool scientific stuff because I thought that was just the coolest thing. But as I got older, I realized it is still very, really cool, but it just doesn't fit my lifestyle or where I live, really,
Yeah.
unless I want to spend more. So that's how I got started. I ended ultimately with organic because organic and in soil, just because that's at my age and with everything, I'm more worried about making, keeping that going while I've got other stuff, worried about labor at work and all this other different kind of stuff that if I don't have to worry about it, it's just one nicer thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna go down the whole organic rabbit hole with you. I've
Yeah, go
noticed,
for it.
I've noticed on your podcast, you and Johnny have been talking about different KNF and Jadam kind of techniques. What kind of made you get into that? Like, I mean,
So,
there's organics, just
mhm.
using building your soil, and then there's the Jadam KNF organics.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that so it starts, I would say, with most people almost the same way. You think I'm going to go organic because you hear certain things like, oh, it tastes better, or perhaps it's easier. Like, I think it's easier. A lot of people say it's harder. I think those people just don't necessarily know what they're talking about, or they're confused. But they start, and then they start thinking, okay, well, if I don't feed salts, that's the main concern, right? So they don't want to feed salts because they hear about the buildup of salt, so they try and eliminate that. And so obviously I started going that way, but I surf, and I want to be in nature and go sailing and be on the ocean as much as possible. So I want to, by that own nature, be as organic as I possibly can, right? Like, I was in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. You always try and make something better than the way you found it in nature. And so that's what I wanted to do with my grows as well. And so that's how I started getting into it. And then I discovered how simple making labs was, because someone took the time to explain it to me in a way that wasn't scientific. Because I'm a very mechanical driven person, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a by trade, I'm a mechanical engineer, or by title, I'm a shop kid. I grew up in a machine shop. I make stuff out of metal, right? Um, And so I'm very mechanical that way. So when someone kind of dropped the more scientific stuff and explained it mechanically to me, I went, that's that's awesome. And I can do it much cheaper at home, and I have much more control over everything. Why wouldn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it made sense to me, being at that time in my life, right? At that, I had so much, I had enough free time at that time in my life to where because I think that can be daunting. People are like, I don't have the free time to start making this up, and they start building it into what it is, a bigger deal. But with all, if you start looking into it and stuff, it's not. But yeah, so I started with it. I wanted to lower the salts, right? I want to grow as healthy as possible. I want to make the world a better place than I found it. And so I started looking at all these things that I was buying at first, and went, it's pretty easy to make, because if I can make it myself, I'm going to do that. I have machines at work that I can make anything I want. As long as I can hold it, I can make it. Why wouldn't I apply that principle to my grow? And that just started, me down the KNF and, Jadam, and all the natural, organic, more input driven, that you have control over and that you have to do. And even now to this day, I only do things that are easy to do in Southern California in an apartment.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of, and I know you've shared those PDFs, and we've talked about them before, but like, there's a lot of those chapters that size and feasibility I will probably never in my future do.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like those PDFs are kind of more leaning towards acreage farming, you know,
Hmm.
outdoor
And it and it
vegetable stuff.
and it's totally it's all about scalability. If you can think that and bring it down into a small portion of your grow, and then exponentially out as well with everything. So it's great to have the knowledge. But
Mm.
if you would have told me when I first started growing organic that I would have detailed knowledge and understanding of how to treat acreage, I would have thought you were crazy, and I would have been like, why would I waste my time with that? But it kind of comes secondhand. So all the KNF and the Jadam stuff that it didn't start with me wanting to do KNF or wanting to do Jadam. It came with, oh, making it this way is KNF. I should learn more about what that is. Instead of just saying I do KNF, why wouldn't I know what KNF is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I'm the exact same way.
yeah,
I
yeah, and
didn't
I
get
have a
into it for the KNF thing. It was more just like, oh, this is part of KNF. It's like,
yeah. Oh,
oh,
that's cool.
okay. Well, yeah, I'll dig deeper into it and see what else they
Yeah,
do.
yeah, and I'm a big proponent of, and when I have my podcast, I won't tell or teach anyone something that I don't know, because that's dishonest, and it's wrong. So I don't say that I teach KNF or Jadam or anything,
Hmm.
because I teach what I know that works in my anecdotal evidence. And I
Yeah.
don't even teach, I just show people how to do it themselves. But yeah, so that's where that whole philosophy came from. So that's why I think we connect when we first started talking, is because you and I are both look at it the same way. It's more of which parts from everything can I take to make growing indoors my easier on me, cheaper in the long run, and better for everything,
Yeah. Yeah, I was
instead of just being a disciple of one teacher or another.
yeah. Yeah, I think it kind of for myself it all started with bokashi. Um
Mm.
just getting the bokashi brand and sprinkling it on my food scraps and seeing what it could do. And then the ferments that came off of that and I was like, "Oh, well what else is there? What else can
Yeah,
I do?" And taking the defoliation when I do defoliation,
all
taking
the
it all
leaves. Yeah,
and putting it all into a bucket, adding some, bokashi in there, seeing what that can do. Just
it's it's amazing what one small building block, because even Bokashi, it's the same building block, right? It's all starts with labs in that aspect. And it's bacteria. And so much of the bacteria and everything that we don't know personally. And I won't even claim to pretend to know because I'd be lying to you.
yeah,
Um, but I know that if I do this certain thing, I get what we call lab. And if I start adding that to certain things, it creates different things, and it's just a building block. And so, similar to with your bokashis, once you know that, you're like, well, it can't hurt.
yeah,
I'll figure it out.
yeah. We should probably say bokashi like 10 more times just to piss Monst off.
I've never heard of that guy.
Oh, there's this other
Gotcha.
podcast that I think I help run,
No,
but
it was a great episode. I watched it in preparation to come up here. I was going to tell a whole story of how I started growing with my having to move my bureau or whatever, but I don't know what that word means. So
yeah, yeah, it's a
it was a weird.
northeastern thing. I don't know.
As a proud West Coaster and a Lakers fan, I have to say that it's amazing that we're friends. But the Monster I also count as a very good friend of mine. So it's a privilege to follow him, but it is a downward trajectory. I hope you correct soon.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Me and him get along very well. We've clicked right from the beginning, and we share a lot of the same views and
I
pathways.
think I think that's what's most important. And as you and I have talked, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, but the people you connect to with are probably the most important thing about the broader community as a whole, right?
Yeah,
'Cause I have very little in common with a lot of people from the so-called Canada the community.
yeah,
So
yeah. There's all types of people.
it takes
Can't
the
please
world,
them all.
brother.
Yeah,
Exactly. Different strokes for different folks.
yeah, exactly. Well, let's kind of. I mean, since we're kind of on that top, well, I guess we kind of moved away from it, but we'll get back into it. Um, let's kind of go into what you do know with the whole KNF Jadam kind of style of organic fertilizers and whatnot. Like you're saying labs. Let's kind
Hmm.
of break that down. What do you need? How do you
Yeah,
how do you make it?
absolutely. So if you all you need to start is rice, brown rice, wild grain rice to a lesser extent. You just want to avoid bleached white rice. I don't think it's actually bleached, but white rice, right? Because you want as much natural bacteria and stuff to exist around it, right? If it's sterilized, it's or what
Mm,
paraboiled is what I think they use, right? It's not gonna work. So you want to take your rice, and I take about a cup of rice and I soak it for 15 minutes in water. I take a cup of rice and I add enough water to where it sits above the rice, and I soak it for 15 minutes. Strain it, put it in the jar with a um, paper towel, and let it sit for a few days. And you'll notice bubbles starting, and you'll notice a separation. And I know a lot of people are visual learners. So if you go to any of the amazing discords that either one of us are associated with, there are people there. I know in my Discord personally, in the Your Average Grow Discord, there, I have a step by step picture instructions on how to make everything I talk about. I meticulously go through and I joke. I don't meticulously do anything, but I go through and I try and make sure that if I say it and I tell you there's going to be a picture, there is. I at least try and keep my word. But so you start, and once you get that after 3 days, it depends where you are. It goes faster based on heat, right?
mm-hmm.
Like with all things. Um, you'll notice a separation. You'll get this gnarly looking gross film on top, and then you'll get some bubbles and stuff, and then underneath that is what you want. That's your rice wash water, right? At this point, it's nothing but rice wash water that's sat for 3 days to your eye. Now you're going to combine that with not a 9 to 10 parts milk. Some people say 10. I've used as little as 9, and then but I think the last time I used 10. But we'll go with 10 into whatever amount of milk you do, you add 1/10 the amount of that rice wash, and you wait, and you'll notice that the milk will start to separate, turning the very top into a curd, and you'll have underneath it is the whey. Or that could be reversed. I know very little about the cheese making process, but once that happens, once that separates, you can take that curd and you can eat it, trash it, compost it, do with it what you please. I ain't your mother. But that serum is what you want. That is your labs. That is active. It's lactic acid bacteria serum labs, and that is basically a bacteria that will help break down organic matters. Right? I use it a lot for an organic Drano because I have a little dog that when I give him a shower or a bath, he just sheds like a mother, and it goes all into my drain. And so I have basically an unlimited supply of organic Drano because that dog won't stop shedding.
Yeah.
And it also works as good for your stomach digestion. You take that, it'll help your stomach. I know, in fact, someone who listened to our podcast made it and started taking it for his stomach, and within the first 2 weeks was feeling better. So again, anecdotal, but it'll help him. It helped him.
Yeah,
But
and
what
it's
it
all
does for your
natural organic products
yeah,
anyways. It's
exactly. Anything that I'm telling you to take, it can't possibly, unless it's been fermented or something like that. And that's when I'll tell you to be more cautious. But
mhm.
all up until there, you can't go wrong. But what it does for your plants is, and I think you could probably guess from the Drano example, but it helps break down organic material. So when you put that into your plants, you can do foliar, but I do a lot of root drenches with it. I add it into everything, into my reservoir and earth boxes and stuff like that. But it'll help break down organic material, and in doing so, it helps become more available to your plant. Right. In theory, that's what it does. But it also helps keep down the smell as a byproduct of that. So if you've got it in your composting bin, or like I know Johnny Apple got me a worm bin got me started on that process, right? Because that was his Christmas present to me, and so he suggested spraying labs on it, and of course, it'll help keep any of the smells down and help aid in it it breaking down. So that's just a great building block that you can then take. You add that to your plants now, and it helps aid in the plant's uptake of these nutrients eventually, right?
Yeah.
But you can also start building. You can use your labs to start building your fermented fruit juices. You could and to just keep going on to make it more. It's taking a billet of material and turning it. You can then turn it into something more specialized and better.
Yeah. Yeah, I've also heard that you can use it for powdery mildew protection as well.
Yes.
If you foliar spray it, it will help, um, you know, decrease the chances of getting powdery mildew and also kill it. Um,
Yeah, I've heard that people have used it on, I want to say eczema. I don't know enough about skin disorders or stuff, but that they use it in treating that.
yeah,
Whether that's true or not, but that would kind of, in my mind, work the same way, right?
yeah, yeah,
So I know that they're like milk sprays that you can use for PM, so it makes more sense to just go straight with
yeah,
the lab.
yeah. I mean, the milk is has bacillus in it, so it's
Exactly.
or lactose, sorry. But
Lactose. But yeah, so it's a building block, and then from there it's just unlimited, and I always have a lot of it in my fridge at all times.
yeah,
It's so simple to make. I see no reason why not.
yeah,
And you know it's really good for is I buy milk occasionally, extra to, like, I'll buy whole milk to bake with, or do or certain things, or certain recipes call for thicker milks. Like, I normally don't drink milk often, but when I do, it's 2%, right?
hmm,
But I'll have whole milk, and when I'll notice it's slightly starting to go bad, because I'll forget about it. And that's a great stuff to turn into labs too, because not only are you not just tossing it, but
yeah,
you're also, you're saving it, getting stuff to compost out of it if you do.
yeah,
I can't say I do much composting. I should, but I just started the worm bin, so
yeah. It's kind of hard in a small place like yours. So
Yeah, in an apartment, it's not inclusive for.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've got a 1 liter jar of it, or a quart jar of it. Um,
You're the
sitting
host. I'll let you call it whatever you want.
I'm Canadian, I'll call it a liter.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I got a 1 liter mason jar of it sitting in my fridge right now. So
Yeah.
I add couple teaspoons in whenever I'm kind of doing feedings or whatever. So
Yeah, I always
compost
I
teas.
exactly. And with my reservoir and my earth boxes, I'll put when I put 2 gallons down there, I'll throw in a tablespoon or more of the labs to also down there because generally you want to avoid putting anything down there that you're worried will go off, right?
Hmm.
Because you don't want it's just stagnant water. But that's how much trust you can put in this bacteria because it will work to actively clean it in theory, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I put it in my autopots reservoir as well, so it cleans all the lines, cleans the reservoir.
Yeah. It's something that you can make your first grow and immediately have it a friend and help immediately
Yeah.
because it only takes at most 2 weeks, right? I guess if you're making it in the dead of winter wherever Johnny's at, it might take slightly longer, but or you,
Yeah.
but for me, it takes within 72 hours. You can definitely have start signs, but I'm always at 75 and
Yeah,
sunny and
once you add that milk to the rice wash solution, it doesn't take long before the curd
no.
starts showing up, and
Hmm.
you separate that serum.
Have you fed it to your dog at all?
No, no.
I've heard dogs love it, but my dog won't get near it.
Mm.
So,
I think when I made it last time, I went a little too long with it. I went like 4 days instead
mhm.
of, and I seen that it was kind of ready at 3, so I might have kind of gone a little
I
sour, but
I know most people, a lot of people, not most. I know a few people don't touch on that, but often when making organic inputs, you'll have something where you're like, I should have done that yesterday, but
yeah,
it's always okay. It's okay to sometimes just look at it and be like, I don't feel like doing that today.
yeah, yeah. It still came out good, I guess.
Yeah,
We'll have to see, but
who knows?
I've used it and
If
I haven't seen any negative results. So
I generally apply to the theory of if it doesn't smell putrid, I'm okay.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any other kind of organic inputs that you've been experimenting with? I know like water soluble calcium.
But there's so we just did an episode on leaf mold. Johnny's making some leaf mold from right before winter. We had an episode where he punished his. I won't tell the story, but he got a bunch of bags full of leaf mold, and he's breaking that down. So we're doing a longer on that. And then the episode after that, we talked about fermented plant juice and fermented fruit juice, and
Mm-hmm.
and did a breakdown on that in the episode, and then showed pictures of how simple it is. And a
Yep.
lot of people don't realize that all you need is fruit and brown sugar.
Yep.
I mean, that's simple.
Yeah. I
And
used a watermelon that was gonna go bad. Cut up the
yeah,
watermelon, cut up all the rinds and everything. Threw it in a big uh, 1 gallon mason jar, equal parts fruit to brown sugar, and let it sit and ferment. And yeah, I've got a whole whack load of fermented fruit juice now for
yeah, and
pennies,
I
and for something that
ex-
was gonna rot.
exactly, and I do it a lot with apples and stuff like that, and other stuff. And I think a lot of people don't want to get started because they'll read about it and be like, oh, you got to pick the the most or quick, sweet, fast growing things around me. It's all got to be organic. And it's like, you don't shoot yourself in the foot before you get started. That is ideal.
Yeah,
If you're only going to get started when things are ideal, you'll never get started. I've been around this stuff for quite some time, and I can't tell you when it's been ideal because I've never seen it. So, like,
yeah,
don't keep holding out. Go get some sweet fruit at a store that you want to eat anyway, and throw a couple berries with some other stuff. I used some of the fan leaves that I pulled off in one with some bananas, and in another I did mangoes and other stuff that I had laying around just to show you how simple it is, how little thought you actually have to put in it.
hmm,
Just, avoid citrus and some of the obvious stuff, but really just get started. You'll see a difference. And if you don't see a difference, hopefully you at least have some fun.
yeah. Why should you avoid citrus? Just because of pH? too acidic?
Yeah, from what I've read, it's too acidic, and like you can run into some issues. I imagine it would be justifiably fine with no downside, but
Yeah.
there's so many other ones that there's so much other things to choose from that when someone tells me, like, I know people say you can't put tomatoes in, or to avoid putting tomatoes in certain thing in worm bins and certain things too. It's like, okay, I just won't, because it's so it's such a little part that I don't like. Whether or not it's true is no concern to me. I
Hmm.
have so much other stuff that I could deal with it that I just don't bother. So whether the citrus thing is true or not, I can't tell you 100%.
Yeah.
I'd imagine it would be fine. However, just don't do it, because that's all I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard orange peels are way too acidic for microbes to break down, so it's just
Yeah,
gonna sit there as a peel for the
yeah.
rest of its life.
And that's stuff you can see evident in nature, right? At least the nature around me. You see
Yeah.
by high schools, you see all the orange peels for years, you know.
Yeah. Um.
But no, I'm trying to think anything. We've got some stuff coming up. We want to Johnny wants to make his own fish hydrocellite. I can't say that word.
Now you, I had it in my head too, and now I can't
Oh,
say it either.
I got the first
Hydrolysate.
part.
There you go.
Yeah,
Hydrolysate.
hydrolysate. Yeah, he wants to make some of his own fish hydrolysate. So he's also he's a bow fisher, which is a thing that I
Yep.
just learned about before we did the show. So my mind's still blown on that. So I'm sorry that I sound like I'm in love with him, but he wants to make some of that coming up. So I think that'll probably be our next one. We were
Nice.
supposed to do an episode more. I really want to get more do a worm bin specific episode on it, because
Mm.
there's just so much to explore there. And I really think it's like I was forbidden from having one because my partner, she does not like them at all. I have introduced it to literally no issue. So it can be done.
Hmm.
And I think it's just about finding the right information. And if I can save someone 2 minutes of research, I think I've done my job, and they listen to the episode, you know?
Yeah. Or even getting them introduced to that topic and putting that little, grain of
Yeah.
salt in their head kind of thing. Like,
There
I don't know
are
if
a
that's
lot
even a
of
saying, but
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of people that I think are afraid to get started, because a lot of the people that they see that are really adamant and outspoken about it are maybe a little too like crunchy for them, maybe, like it's their whole life, and it's like, how dare you ever use plastic? And like,
yeah.
I can't be like that. I'm not a vegan. I'd never be a vegetarian. I just want someone to save a couple bucks and do the planet a solid if they can, like I won't get into the reasons why it's silly, but like concentrating on just emboldening people to do it themselves, because I think a lot of people fear and get told that it's hard,
Yeah.
and that's not true. That's just not true. Because if I can do it, and I firmly believe this, if I can do it, anybody can do it. There
Yeah.
are people way smarter than me that can do it, and way dumber too. But if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. When I started getting into organics, it was kind of nerve-wracking. I was very, oh my God, I need worms, I need this, I need that. And
Yeah.
then once you get into it, it's just super simple, right? There's people that kind of force you down that path of thinking that way, and it's our duty to tell them that it isn't.
Yeah, and if there's one thing that I want people to like, I am not a spectacular grower. I know very little about what I don't know about, right? The one thing I can do is teach people it's not a big deal. Anybody that grows organic and makes it out to be this horrible, like horribly hard, like life choice are doing themselves and everyone else a disfavor, because it doesn't make you a better person or a better grower to grow organically, but it is easier, and I think you can do it cheaper.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
especially if you
I
make your
think
own inputs.
exactly. And anyone who stands in the way of like, nah, we shouldn't be like gatekeeping organic growing is the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Right.
And if anybody does that, they're a sick, mental, weird dude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, grocery stores are gatekeepers to organics, right?
That's
Like,
true.
you
Yeah.
go into the organic fruit section or veggie section, and they're twice the price. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
And
why are
and
you
and
guys
I
doing
think
that?
I think another good thing to always remind people is it just because it's or doesn't say organic certified or whatever doesn't mean it's not all natural. There's people pay for that little thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think it's like omni listed, right? Like just because it says that, it's just another way the government got their way to get cash out of the operation. Don't mean anything. Like I know a lot of those companies that are especially in my industry, that they claim to be fully organic, and a lot of their products are organic because they can only trace it back so far.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
it's not hard, and please just try it, and you'll find it yourself, and you'll become frustrated with the idea of it being gate kept well as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally. And that's, I mean, you can see in the background here, I've got a Jadam book.
Yeah,
I just bought it 2 weeks ago, and I haven't got a chance to actually go through it and read it, but I have touched on a few things through PDF files that I have. But I mean, a
yeah,
good hard copy of organic growing is always a good thing to have around. You know,
exactly.
not
They
saying I'm
can't.
sort of like, uh, day end of day kind of doomskeeper kind of thing, right? Doomsday prepper, but
No, of
it's
of course
always
not.
good to have that knowledge around in an actual hard copy.
I do want to know why you ordered 15 copies for your 15 different bunkers, though. That seems a little
I
extreme.
didn't do that.
No,
It's
but I mean, knowledge can never be taken from you, right?
yeah,
Like there's only two things you have to do in this world, and that's you have to die and you have to pay taxes, right? That's the only thing that you have to do, whether that you have no choice in the matter. If you learn and you learn to do something like organic gardening, you have given yourself such a strong edge up in this world, no matter what happens. Like, it just also shows, like, if I'm interviewing someone and they come to me and say, "I know how to do organic garden," that's a plus regardless what the job is. That just means that they took the time to learn, just as if
yeah,
you say, So it's just good to have knowledge, even if you never use it.
yep, yeah, exactly. So what? I mean, I guess you were talking. I don't know if you want to spoil it or not. You were talking about. Um,
There's nothing I wouldn't spoil or ever keep anything from, man.
you were
I'm an open
talking
book.
about using like FPJs and FFJs and stuff like. Uh, I guess can we touched on it a bit how simple the process is. Do you want to kind of dive
Absolutely.
into that?
Absolutely. I'm going to teach you the way that I did it because there's a couple recipes out there, and some would ask you to give it more time and like let it naturally get the bacteria instead of actually helping it along sometimes too. But let's take all that out, and I'll give it as simple as this. You've got labs that we just made, right? I taught you just make labs. You got some sitting around. What sweet fruit or fruit do you have in your kitchen that looks a little iffy, right? The apple that you're like, man, if I had a different apple, I wouldn't be eating that apple.
Yeah,
Take it up, take that fruit. We'll go with bananas and apples for an example, right? That banana is a little brown. Take it up, take the hard part of the banana off. Just cut that part off. And then cut the rest of it up into little inch-sized pieces, right? Cubes, whatever you want, you don't want to mash it or anything, just cut it up. Weigh it, however much it weighs, right? 1 pound, half a pound, however much or little you want to do, because at the end, you use such a tiny, minuscule amount that you don't really need to be worried about massive quantities, right? Like you don't need 40 watermelons. You can work with the one,
yeah,
but with that many, and then you take that weight. We'll go with 1 pound, 1 pound of bananas, and then you want as close to unrefined sugar as you can get. The more natural, the better in this process.
yeah.
So I use brown cane sugar, right? Or not cane sugar, brown whatever sugar. Maybe I can't
Raw
remember.
brown sugar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
raw brown sugar.
yeah,
And you take 1 pound of that. So 1 pound of what your fruit is, and 1 pound of brown sugar, and you mix that together and you let it sit not like you don't have to be insane with it if you want, but the pressure of the brown sugar is going to draw out the moisture of that fruit eventually, right?
yeah,
That's just how it's going to work. So you let that sit for 2 weeks, and then you strain it, right? And you take that liquid and you add that's left over is your fermented fruit juice if you're using it for flour. Like in my situation, we only made the FFJ because we were both in flour. So we selfishly did, and we made it 2 episodes so that we could get twice as much content because we're lazy content producers. But so you're only going to use a little bit throughout each feeding once a week, but it helps increase your terps and all this stuff as it claims. But what it really also does is you've now trained this bacteria to eat, right, this certain like sugars and stuff that are associated with it, right? Like because I'll add labs to mine and stuff like that, right? So it'll help the bacteria to become specialized to help break down more of that in the soil so that your plant can, like, for instance, the reason you use fruit is because it contains what you are after in your medicinal plants, right? So you just if you understand that you're helping the bacteria, you're almost training the bacteria to look for a certain thing and do a certain thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what you tailor it with. If you want, if you're thinking about that through veg, your next cycle you look at what's fast growing, right? You want a fast growing plant because you want your plant to grow faster. You want a sweet fruit because that's how you know that a fruit's good.
Hmm.
So you compare that to, and so that you just mix it with whatever you get, you equally mix with brown sugar, and you will have an organic amendment that you can add in flour or in veg, and it's as simple as that. You know, add a couple tablespoons of labs to that process, and it speeds it up. It will occur naturally, but the labs will speed it up and also keep smell down if you're worried. So you could do it in your own, cupboard.
Yep. Yeah, and it's not, you don't have to just use one type of fruit. You can, mix apples, strawberries, bananas,
You can
cantaloupe,
mix,
everything
yeah,
all in together.
and you can mix you can mix if you want. Like I put my fan leaves that I removed in with my bananas and apple
Hmm. Give it a lot of
because
nitrogen.
exactly, because I had one of my medicinal plants was taking a bit longer, so I wanted to help it out. So I tailored it because I have that ability to tailor per the environment and what's going on,
Yeah.
because that's how easy organics is.
Yeah. It goes back to the whole thing of not making it super complicated. Just
Exactly. We all want the same end goal.
yeah.
None of us start this process to end up with nothing, right? I just think that I've found the simplest way to do it, with the simplest inputs for the cheapest, and I can't tell you how easy it is. I think I could take, and it's not my system. I'm not doing anything that you're not doing. Like it's just I think it's the easiest system there is, so that's why I continue to do it.
Yeah.
You do lose out on things, but at the end of the day, we both you and I achieve what we aim to set out to do, right?
Yeah. What kind
Can't
of
beat that.
container do you use with that 5 gallon bucket, mason jar,
So
whatever
my
you got laying
last
around?
I've done a lot. I really would love to do big beds only, but I don't have the situation for that. So I set up in earth boxes, which are, I believe, 29 by 12 by 14
Yeah.
inches. Um, they're sub irrigated planters. It's basically a non-mechanical version of an autopot, right?
Hmm.
It, same theory, SIP. Um, it's a theory that I will push from now on.
Yep.
This is the first time I've ever grown in an earth box, and I can't tell you how easy it is, how much fun I've had, and basically how impressive it is. It really I talk about ego death on my podcast a lot. And that's a whole topic that you're well more versed in than I am. But there is nothing more refreshing than growing a monster plant in an earth box and going, I had nothing to do with this. That plant would have done the exact same thing no matter what person did it.
Yep.
And that's what I'm hoping to do is if we can get more SIP systems into more people's hands, I think that ego of I'm the better grower goes completely out of the window because
Yeah.
it stops most of that is dumb luck a lot of times, right? They had no hand in it, but they'll take credit for it. But if we can get systems that work for everybody, hopefully that goes away, man, and we can all just be honest with each other and stop this nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I fully agree. The whole SIP system style of growing is amazing. The autopots is just a life changer, especially with organics. Um, I grow both ways. I grow with salts just because I want to be diverse. I want to know kind of how everything works and how,
Absolutely.
one plant likes it and the other plants don't, whatever, but with autopots, it's just been such a lifesaver being able to do what I want whenever I want.
I know a lot of people will say that they they're like, oh, it's a lot of money or something like that. Like, start out with anything. Like, I don't preach. I'll never be sponsored. I don't believe in sponsored. Blah blah blah. I just preach, get something and try it. I think people will be blown away. And like with you, like autopots are obviously, I think, the Cadillac out there. Um, but just try anything.
Mm,
The first, like I was telling Johnny, we're doing this grow along thing. And if I was telling him, if you grow one monster, because he doesn't like auto flowers at all, auto flowering um, at all. And so I was like, if you grow one so that you can done it, it just proves our point. Because our whole podcast point is if we can get these in hands of every grandmother to grow and to, because how they grow tomatoes, it's similar. It's just gardening, right?
hmm
So that any SIP system, but yeah, if we can get more people into it, I think it's beneficial.
yeah, yeah, and you don't even need to go as far as buying uh,
No.
an earth box or an autopod system or blue mots. Like you can do this with a simple 5 gallon bucket, two 5 gallon
Exactly.
buckets.
Yep. You
The
can.
bottom one can be your reservoir, the one that you slide in top, a bunch of holes drilled in the bottom, that could be your growing media. So
Yeah,
bottom sip system.
it can be done in all your stuff outdoors. You can do all of your gardening that way in the future, and
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, you ain't doing anything but watching, and it's a pleasure every time. It makes the whole experience. And I also don't train because I just like really watching um, Mother Nature go.
Yeah.
You know, I like to give that answer instead of I just don't want to do it because it sounds more poetic and philosophical. But really, it's just I like watching nature go.
Yeah.
So it's it's just those two in combo. It's so simple that I often find things to do. I'm like looking for things to do around the garden, right? So I guess that's a downside.
hmm
Boredom. Find another hobby.
it allows you to be able to check your plants over, make sure there's no bugs, diseases, nothing like that. It
Oh yeah, I was.
frees up some time.
I'm being quite facetious. It is not a complaint of mine at all.
Yeah.
It's nice not to have to worry like, oh man, I got to water all three of them today. Like,
Yeah.
it's nice just not having that.
Yeah. So what do you got for growing equipment? Like what do you got, a 2x4, three earth boxes?
I've got 2x2, or no, I don't. My goodness, I have a 2x4 and a 2x3. Um, I have two earth boxes in the 2x4, and then I have an earth box in the 2x3. The 2x3 also it serves a dual purpose as drying.
Okay.
So I am constantly, but that's my absolute hard limit. I am not capable of going further currently because I rent in an apartment.
Yeah.
It's just my luck, but it's plenty for me. So I'm not complaining. It's probably nicer because it's nice having a limit because knowing me, I'd be like, oh no, I bought another one. But it's nice not having to worry about that. It makes my relationship much safer and easier. But so I have three earth boxes total. This was my first go with the earth boxes. I did 5 gallons last time. But and then big beds. Primarily, we do big beds at work for research. If we're ever doing any research for the stuff we do at work, we'll use photo varieties of medicinal plant, and just because it makes more sense, right? And those are all in really big beds, which is where all this love came from. Is just seeing what a big battery can do. Is just, I mean, talk about easy peasy, water only, dude.
Yeah.
But that's all industrial stuff. That's not fun for me.
Yeah, when it becomes a job and a over your hobby, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, and it's always the thing where it's super cool. It is cool, but I when I'm at work, I don't want to be doing anything but work.
Yeah.
When I'm at home, I like to be at home and doing. And I'm sure with you too. You're a husband, right, and a father. um, that's more important at the end of the day. So it's really nice to have the separation and have a job and then have my hobbies. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to mix them.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. So you got your two tents, 2x4, 2x3. What do you got for lights?
So I have this is again going to tie back to my work, and hold on, I'm going to do this so I get a little more comfortable. The At my work we bought, I want to say 35 of these Chinese knockoff lights, right? Because we needed to fill an entire warehouse to run all kinds of experiments. We have one built out greenhouse, and those all run HPS. And the back we turned into like on one side we were running a ton of tomatoes, all these kinds of scientific research. So we bought, I want to say 40, maybe 45 of these quantum boards from some company that I can't remember the name of, but in one of my tents, I have a Maxi Sun
Oh yeah.
PB 1500 or something. And then in my other tent, my 2x3, I have about 45 unknown quantum boards to run through before. So
Jesus.
yeah, lighting is not going to be much of an issue. I'll eventually upgrade, but it seems silly when there's so much else going on to be like, do I buy something or do I just literally take from a rack of things we're trying to
Yeah.
get rid of?
Yeah. If you got it, use it.
Exactly. It's not the best, but it works for me.
Yeah. So being in California, do you experience higher temps and higher humidities?
So yeah, so I'm within, I won't live unless I can be within like a 5 minute drive of the Pacific Ocean. Right. So I live on the coast here.
Yeah.
So we get huge spikes in humidity in the morning and huge spikes of humidity at night when we get that real nice layer or that marine layer comes in, right? Um, but our temperatures almost always stay the same relatively, right? We get low 60s and then high 80s are our lows and highs normally. We get extremes occasionally. Like I think it got 91 at the beach over one of the holidays in the summer. I can't remember which one, and that was devastating. Like we had rolling blackouts and stuff like that because it's not that hot and it by the beach ever. You go east, it's 101 there every day, so
Yeah.
it's funny. But so we normally are at like 75. It's been raining here lately. It started raining almost immediately after I chopped to dry two plants, so
Yeah. Perfect timing.
wonderful. Nothing like using a portable air conditioning unit in January 1st.
Yeah.
That's a real kick in the wallet, which that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, so we have pretty much standard weather here. The only thing that changes is it gets colder at night or the time at which it gets warm. So I pretty much live in shorts and sandals. I'm wearing a beanie because it rained today, so I wanted to,
Mhm.
like you, man. You know, I felt bad that you're all cold, so I tried to be more like you.
Yeah. Up north here, we call those toques.
Toques, yeah,
Yeah.
take off, eh?
All
Bob and Doug, dude. Strange Brew is one of the best movies of all
right.
time.
All right. Take off. Take
Yeah.
off, you hoser.
Take off. That and I do like Canadian Bacon, even though I don't like the director.
Yeah.
But that's for another topic too.
Well, so how do you mitigate those environmental swings like your humidity? Or you got AC Infinity fans, Mars fans, something like that?
Yeah. So I everything is pushed off into my lung room, which is a garage, right?
Mm.
So it's a lung room in name and name only. I've got some sheets covering some stuff to try and deal with certain things, but if I need to change something drastically, I've had to purchase something to do it. So both of my tents, I have the AC Infinity complete setup. I even have the oscillating fan in one of them now,
Nice.
which I wouldn't buy again because apparently if they remain isolating, that's a whole nother issue. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
um, and so I've got a in my 2x4, I've got the T6, I've got that whole system, and then I use like our buddy Monster does. I use Inkbirds to control my humidity and dehumidifier all in the 2x4. I've carried that over to my 2x3. When it's drying, I have my portable AC unit because in the summer it's necessary.
Mhm.
I can't get that 10 to 60 degrees is unheard of, right? So even in the winter, it's if it's 60 degrees, the humidity on top of fighting it, like it's such a small tent that I just pretty much run an AC, portable AC. But so I've got that all dialed out with Inkbirds and stuff like too. And I have all the like thermostats and all the things, or not thermostats, but all the thermometers and all the Wi-Fi things. But I found that I stopped using most of that almost immediately after I got it. I checked it for a few grows and I was like, it's nice to be able to see it, but I can't do anything with the information when I'm at work. So all it does is really just stress me out.
Mhm.
So what's the point? So I,
Yeah.
I definitely will talk that automation is great, but sometimes like having a nanny cam in your tent, sometimes you can just do things to drive yourself crazy. And
Yeah.
that kind of goes against the way I preach. Just be patient, let it be, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm same way. I have Inkbird Wi-Fi controllers, and when I'm at work, I'm driving around at my, if my alarm goes off and my wife's home, I can do something about it. She can, unplug some or turn something on for me. But
Oh
other than
yeah.
that,
I
it's just a stress thing. Yeah.
Exactly. I absolutely have used it and been like, "Oh, hey, honey, go pull this out of the wall." And she's like, "Why?" I'd be like, "Just please."
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just like I seeing it and being like, "That's not where I want it," is more frustrating to me than just not knowing.
Yeah.
So often in my life, I will just ignore it instead of.
Yeah. I've put a lot of trust into those Inkbird controllers, and they do work.
I will say, I mentioned Monsta having them too, but it was a conversation with you that got me to go and re-up with Inkbird to get for my 2x3 actually,
Nice.
because I was talking to you about the Wi-Fi ones,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't know if and you're like, no, do it, try it, and I did, and it was worthwhile. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the whole reason you brought me on this podcast was for that thank you. It's been like 6 months waiting, and you're like, that guy owes me a thank you.
No. No, I've used them pretty much ever since I started growing. I have like got five, six, seven
Oh
of
yeah,
them. So
they're fantastic. I love them.
yeah, and
They're better.
I got the little gateway one that hooks up to your Wi-Fi, that hooks up to all the Bluetooth sensors as well.
I will say that the sensors were annoying when setting the Wi-Fi for the Bluetooth. But once you have a guest network, it's really easy. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, at least because where I live, it's Google Fiber, so
Oh yeah.
they come in one broadband, so you got to split them. That was the only
Mm,
knock. But if that's the only knock I ever hear about your product, I think you're doing pretty damn good.
yeah, yeah,
And I couldn't recommend them enough.
yeah. Either. I mean, it's one of those things that makes your life easier. So, and they're not that
Absolutely.
badly priced. I mean, no shill
No.
for Inkbird, but like,
No, and I absolutely am of the mindset that it's nice to have like I think you should spend some money. I'm not I think you should grow outside and have all that fun. But I also think if you're going to set up in your house, have it the way you want it and spend a little money eventually, not to get started. Don't waste your money getting started on that. There's a
yeah,
lot of stuff you won't ever don't even worry about VPD at first until you like know more. But um I think they're beneficial. So I think if you can save money and it's beneficial, then I can't recommend it enough, you know.
yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, well, we're kind of rounding the hour here.
Oh, thank God, I've never sat so long. I'm just kidding.
Where I kind of like to
Oh, you want me to
plug
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 myself?
yourself. Where can people find you? You got a podcast, obviously. It's
Yeah, I mean, if you want to find me, don't. But if you the only people that want to find me generally are looking for other things,
looking for
bad
money.
things, police. No, didn't say that. I'm just kidding. Go listen to the Your Average Grow podcast. Um, the guy I do the podcast with is one of my best friends, Johnny Apple. I promise you, you'll like him a lot better than you liked me. He's the better half. Um, so go check him out, if only to see what an actual functioning member of a podcast sounds like. But we try and release every Sunday and Wednesday, and then once a month we do a bigger one with Cott's Growery and Mac Attack Gardens. Um, I if you I have a similar philosophy to our buddy Mad Hatter here. I just want to surround myself with good people. So if they're a good person, I try and get them associated with the podcast at some point. Like I reached out to you almost immediately and be like, you got to be on. And so if our podcast is associated with someone, that means they're a good person. So check us out. We're just like Mad Hatter. He's way better, so it will be a downgrade, but
You speak too highly of me. Just another person.
oh, don't worry. No, this was great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, and
Yeah, no worries.
sorry you had to sit through that.
No. I've been really enjoying your podcasts and the guys that you bring on and the guys that you do have, Johnny and whatnot. And
Thanks.
it's yeah, it's a nice smooth flowing podcast where it's just a couple buddies chatting away about growing.
There's one thing I can promise you, and that's I don't take myself seriously, man.
Yeah.
I live a very, very good life. So if we're just talking about something like medicinal herbs, brother, why wouldn't I be in a good mood and talking
Right?
happy? Like,
Exactly. I've caught
it's great.
myself laughing pretty good driving my truck, so
Good, good. I hope at our incompetence, if nothing. Or I will share this before we go. I actually paid money to go to college to be an English teacher. So every single time you hear me speak, remember the thousands of dollars wasted.
mm. Yeah, I mean it come in handy now. Your vocabulary is awesome, so
Well, thank you.
yeah.
I can read. I've had a great time, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. I hope everyone kind of gets good amount of information off this one. There's lots of good natural products that you can use and KNF methods. Yeah, it was very informative.
Absolutely. Reach out with any questions. I have no issue answering them.
Yeah, exactly. I'll leave all the social media links and descriptions and everything in the description section below, so everyone can come find you.
Oh, absolutely. If they want to. Thank
All
you, my
right,
friend.
man. You have a wonderful night,
You too.
day.
Happy New Year's,
Yeah,
dude.
happy
I
New
can't
Year's.
believe.
Yeah, I guess
Happy
we're
New Year.
recording this on the 1st of January. Yeah.
I know we didn't say it. That's how I like to do our stuff. I'll just throw in random holidays, so I'll save it to when that holiday is.
Yeah.
Like we did a recording, and I'm like, "Hey, what'd you think about St. Patrick's Day?" Johnny's like, "That's in like 6 months." I'm like, "Aha, St. Patrick's Day episode."
There you go.
All
Well,
right, brother.
happy Easter and thanks
Happy
for
Easter.
thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. All pleasure's all mine.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And if you guys wouldn't mind, throw a review everywhere you're listening to this. Hit that like button. Share with your friends. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the algorithm, I guess.
He's a great dude. Go support him.
Thanks, man. With all that being said, guys, we'll check you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.